priest and rabbi is just a priest today. Aaron was here last night at Chili Fest, but is at, they have Sunday school where he is at Ohav Shalom, so they learning Jewish life, scripture, and so on. We were almost done with chapter 16. I want to hit the very end of it again. The house of Israel called that white flaky thing that fell from the heavens, what did they call it? Anybody remember? Manna. And that sounds classy, I think, manna. But what is in Hebrew? Do you remember what that's called? What is it? Whatever. Which is the part of the humor we miss in translation. What's that stuff is another way to say it. It was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. So they made some type of bread with this, and they ate it for 40 years. And it was a reminder when Jewish life, Hebrew culture, language, when you say the word or the number 40, 40 years means how long? Not forever, and not a little bit, but a while. 40 years would mean a couple generations. That's what's suggestive of. 40 days and 40 nights it rained. 40 days Jesus is in the wilderness. All those things are meant to say it's a while, whatever that is. So I don't know about you, but in our family, and I was about to say we, but that would be a total lie. Natalie does all the cooking, and I can make cinnamon toast, Rice Krispie treats. No, but like once a year is plenty with that. But it's always something new and delicious. But sometimes, you make soup and you eat soup for 5 days in a row. And then, by the fourth day, it's like, well, it's still good, but I need to eat the rest of it. And I don't want to waste it. And I also don't want to cook anything else. But could you imagine 40 years of the same thing? There's quail, and then there's bread. And, it's really delicious bread. But if you had the same bread for 40 years, oh my gosh, the complaining that would happen. So poor Moses is like, I will say, people here hardly ever complain. It's cold in church. Oh, I'll get that type of thing. Just this little gesture. Or, I'm glad I brought my winter coat to worship today. And, these little things. That's after just a couple weeks. Imagine 40 years of bread. So there's the context. And then it ends. The Israelites ate manna for 40 years until they came to a habitable land, so a new one to move into. And we've said it many, many times, the desert is not that big. The point of this is to get the Egyptian pagan out and get the God, Yahweh covenant in. And this is all this process. So to walk across the desert would be a year or so. How much is an omer? That's a unit of measurement. Anybody know? 2.5 or so liters. So think of a 2-liter bottle. It's the amount of grain, enough grain to make food, bread, for one person for the whole day. And they get a double 2 omers on the end of the week, so you don't have to collect on the Sabbath. And it's a tenth of that is an ephah, I think is. So these are just units of measurement. By the way, you're not supposed to hide your light under a what? A bushel basket. What the heck is a bushel basket? A bushel is a measurement. So it's a similar type of idea. Something that everybody would have known. It's like, so it's a day's rations, essentially, when we talk about that much manna. And omer, what it even tells you, is a tenth of an ephah. So the Israelites ate manna for 40 years until they came to a habitable land. We're about to get there. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. Where in the heck is the land of Canaan? It's a popular wedding site. That's the first miracle in the book of John, is the wedding in Cana of Galilee. The larger of Canaan is what we call the Holy Land, that general area. They're approaching their destination. How many enemies have they had on this journey so far? So by the way, if you notice, we just had 40 years. There are all these events that narrate them. Moses does this and Aaron says that, and they move here, and it's all like happening in real time. And then, break, 40 years happen. They're just in the wilderness. And then they get to this point. So there's a huge time span that just occurred there. They're getting close to the destination. How many enemies have they had on the trip thus far? Egyptians. Anybody else? You need an antagonist in a good drama, and we're about to get another one. And you remember the story at the beginning of the Bible, Genesis. God creates the heavens and the earth, everything's good, and then what happens? Do they just continue on forever? It's like, everybody's happy and they all win and they all... No, there's this snake, the personification of evil, so the antagonist appears, and then the drama occurs. You can't really have one without the other. So we're about to get the next antagonist who are stand-in forever. And they're historic antagonists, so it's even better. Not just some new guy that shows up, but, those old people. Chapter 17.
They say in the theater that perfection is boring.
Perfection is boring, that's right. You need the tension and the contrast, all those things. From the wilderness of sin, which is based off Sinai, the whole congregation of the Israelites journeyed by stages. Remember, we're talking thousands upon thousands of people. By stages, they went as a group, as the Lord commanded. So, they're doing what God said to do. How many times has that happened in the story? Not well, not consistently. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. They're in the desert and they're thirsty. Huge surprise there. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why are you blaming me? This is God's fault." And how many times has this happened before? When did they have a huge army bent on vengeance behind them and a giant wall of water in front of them? Oh, right, the Red Sea that we escaped. And were we ever thirsty? Oh, yeah, and then he took his stick, the staff, and hit the rock. And there was the other thing where the water was there, but it was bitter, and God, through Moses, purified it. So this is at least the third time they need water to drink, as, again, you would expect in the desert. Sometimes I feel in these stories, there was one particular, it was 24 with Kiefer Sutherland. If you remember, that was like 20 years ago. And awesome. This event's happened in 24 hours, and it's desperate, and they kidnap his daughter, and he's got to fight the bad guys and save the world. And it was really cool. And then they get to season 2. It's like, it's the same thing. You did it all. And it feels like parts of Exodus, they already complained about it being too hot or they're too thirsty. And it's God's fault. And yes, that's happening. Why, I suggest, why is that happening? Think about why would the same theme reappear in the story? So it's just repetition for repetition's sake, or what?
Each time it shows that God's paying attention.
Each time it shows that God is paying attention. Each time it shows, are they going to be faithful and follow the commandments or not? Do they really trust God or not? Or is this, they're still refused to be the covenant people? Are they still stuck in pagan Egyptian mindset and world? Or do we really trust God to be God and do what He says? Yahweh's, it's used in masculine terminology, but if that hangs you up, then think of it differently. Is God who He says He is or not? Over and over, and they keep going back to yes, but. So yes, but would summarize a huge chunk of Exodus. Yes, we believe you, but we are thirsty. We are hot. We are tired. We are whatever it is. And so here is another example. Give us water to drink. Why do you test the Lord? But the people thirsted there for water. And the people complained against Moses and said, similar what we heard before, why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and livestock with thirst? So Moses cried out to the Lord, what shall I do? If this were a movie, you would turn from the people, oh God, why are you doing this to me? They're almost ready to stone me. The Lord said to Moses, go on ahead of the people, take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take a fun fact. Do you know the etymological origin of the word priest? Presbyter, did Catherine say that? Presbyter, which is very impressive, which means elder. That's the Old English priest is a shortened form of elder, presbyter, and it comes from elders like this. It would have meant originally probably older people, men most likely in this case, but those that people look to. So Moses didn't do everything himself, but were organized by groups, could disseminate information, gather information, figure it out. And it's really smart. What we would now do is, Jonathan, we have this horrible problem. We need to have the heat in the church. And I would say we really need to form a committee and study this and get back. And the vestry will do some work and they'll say, yeah, it's really cold. We should do something. Well, then we turn to the guy, David or whoever it is, in the junior ward in this case, who can fix it. And then it's rather than just take responsibility, Moses and Aaron, and do it, it's passing the buck here and there. They're almost ready to stone me. Okay, take some elders, go out with you, and take the staff with which you struck the Nile. And when Moses struck the Nile, so remember, what was that? What happened when he struck the Nile? The Nile River, not the Red Sea. So further back, the very first of the 10 plagues or mighty acts, turn the water into blood, which is essentially the opposite of what's happening. It's a type of curse. And so this, he takes the same staff, and is this Moses' power, Aaron's power, Egyptian magic? No, it's not Jewish magic, it's Yahweh's power. So the staff becomes a symbol of Yahweh. Strikes the rock, touches it, hits it, doesn't matter. It's the power of God symbolized, striking, and water will come out of it. Does it keep gushing forever? It's not really clear, but we know that whenever it happens, water comes out. Moses, and he did so in the sight of the elders. So everybody saw, oh, God did this. Now all of y'all go back and tell everybody that God did it. So there's now water, and orderly come up with your own buckets and take them and quit complaining. The end. That's just a little bit of extra, but probably what they said. Moses called the place Massah and Meribah because the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? What in the heck do Massah and Meribah mean? Any idea? One means test and one means quarrel. So he named the place, it's almost like what a kid would do. This place is now called Crazy Town. This is a place, annoys mom and dad. That's what we're calling this place from now on, because you always do this. You're quarreling, you're fighting, and you're testing the Lord, so we're going to call it the place of fighting and testing God. Oh, something particularly in Hebrew thought, Jewish life, that I would say is substantially different than Christian thought or life, is they, more often than not, call attention to bad things, misbehavior, lack of faith. Christians don't do it scripturally, don't do that as much. So they name the place, this place of quarreling, is a little, I don't know, how do you take that as a reminder? Would you like to be reminded of your past faults? Big fat no to that one, Michael?
I think there's an important difference, though, in the terms. Earlier you talked about faith and trust as if they were the same thing or meant the same thing as they do Christians. But I think there's a big difference between the way Jews see faith. The word for faith, moon in Hebrew, means trust. Trust and faith are similar, but they're not the same thing. And the most common Old Testament reference to faith is actually the word for trust, whereas Paul's notion of faith is derived from a separate Hebrew root, the BTH root. So when in the Old Testament, when people are talking about what we tend to confuse as the same thing, faith and trust, they're really talking about trust most of the time in the Old Testament, whereas for Paul, faith is a very different thing coming from the Septuagint translations to Stuane. It's a different thing.
I would.
That's why backsliding is more common in the Old Testament, I think, than it is for Paul.
For those, particularly online, Michael's bringing out the difference in Jewish thought, Old Testament thought, New Testament thought of faith and trust. In the New Testament with Paul, he's talking about faith and trust, you could say, are maybe not exactly the same thing, but very, very close. When also throw in another one, when we say we believe, as in the creed, it really means trust. I based my life on. It doesn't mean I believe a cognitive proposition. The sky is blue or this, then that thing. It's I trust that. In Hebrew thought, I think they're closer, Michael, than you're suggesting, because Paul is a Jew in how he is organizational thought, and he does take it, totally agree, a whole other direction with Greek thought, what becomes Christianity. One could make a reasonable case that Paul invents Christianity from the life that existed. Anyway, in Jewish thought, Hebrew thought specifically, trust, the hesed is the main word. It means steadfast faith. And how is one faithful as a Christian? Let me express it that way. How would you answer that? What does it mean to believe, to trust, to be faithful as a Christian person? That's the propositional stuff. That's not Christianity, but that often passes as Christianity. It's very reasonable. I don't mean to shame you. It's normal. But trusting that, so your life is centered around Jesus is one way to say that, and that all of that comes out of you, of how you behave in the world, how you act, how you spend your money, time, think, and so on. In Hebrew thought, to be faithful does not mean that. It means specifically to follow the commandments, the mitzvah, the 613. And they're always some more important. Don't murder is more important than having a cheeseburger. That's even today and then. But certain things, you could say 10 commandments, these are the biggest ones. And the first one, most of all, is what? What's the very first commandment? You shall have no other gods before me. Yahweh is God, the Lord, nothing else. And we've talked about monolatry. This is the chief God among many. No matter what, power, security, fame, God should be God. No other idols. And that, I would suggest, is where they are not faithful. They're breaking that first commandment. They haven't been given yet, but they're breaking the first commandment over and over and over. They're not trusting God and obeying that first commandment. And so this is reading back into, but that's also how the people writing this were thinking of it. They are disobeying the commandments, the most fundamental one. And if you can't get the most fundamental one right, it's very likely you're not going to get all the other ones right also. Is that reasonable?
I would tend to see faith as Paul defines it, and trust as the Hebrew.
He sees a bigger distinction between Hebrew thought and Paul's thought on trust. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just trying to clarify for everybody. And it's nice that I'm trying to do both Christian and Jewish interpretation of things. I have learned so much over the last few years doing this. It's really great fun. And Aaron's learned quite a bit as well. But good distinction. I encourage you all to look it up. I really encourage you, and we've said a million times, to be more faithful, trusting Christians, or if you're a Jew, to be a more faithful, trusting Jew. Embrace that more, and often by learning other parts to it, or different religions talking about the same thing, we can appreciate ours more. The fundamental shift is about to happen. Go ahead.
What do you think the purpose of showing, it seems as though the Israelites need a dose of gratitude.
The Israelites need a dose of gratitude.
Because there isn't the equivalent of yentas. There's this complaining nature, and Aaron's not here to defend himself.
There is this complaining nature within the Israelites. Have you read the New Testament?
The New Testament is there.
The New Testament's better. Let me look to Russ. You've read the New Testament many times. Is there any complaining, or let's call it misbehaving?
So, I'm trying to remember some famous lines from the letter to the Hebrews, where the author talks very directly about faith and what it means. Faith is the confidence of things unseen. And he or she goes through a long list of Jewish heroes from way back in biblical times. These people were faithful.
Yeah, let me just come closer.
Because they followed what they understood the Lord was asking for, even though they didn't know what the outcome was going to be. That was kind of the message. And of course, the author of this letter is trying to get people back into the Jesus mode of thinking about faith.
Of the letter to the Hebrews in the New
letter to the
Testament.
Hebrews, right. But there's a long, I think it's chapters 10 and 11 or something like that, discussion about what faith entails. To a group of readers who clearly had some doubts.
My question, though, really for Allison, is there anything, and that was excellent, Russ, anything in the New Testament where the Christians complain analogous to the Jews? You foolish Galatians, who has, what's the word, bewitched you? Corinthians, you could say that. Basically, all of them have lost their way, or they're fighting about stupid stuff. That's not biblical word, that's my words. Fighting about stupid stuff, or they're...
Eaten by lions.
No, that's later. Well, it's about then. But the people don't get it, understand the fullness, the depth of the life that God calls them into. It's absolutely the case in both. And so there becomes one way you can look at this, and this is reductionist to a great degree. What the New Testament does, what Christianity does, is allow Gentiles into the covenant relationship that God has established with the Israelites, the Jews. And so that argument point is going on. But there are also lots more points and much more depth going on too. And I would say that it is fundamentally human nature to behave like the Israelites in the Old Testament, just like it is for the different Christians in the New Testament to behave that way. Could they be more grateful? I don't know. Is there anybody in your family who could be more grateful? You can think of a few. Not any of you. I'm talking about all those other awful relatives we have.
Gratitude is the most important attribute.
Gratitude or thankfulness, so, very similar. That, Catherine?
To what extent is the lack of gratitude or complaining or the whining part of learning to be faithful?
To what extent is the lack of gratitude, the complaining, learning to be a part of a faith community? or the chosen people might be how they'd say it. I would think that that's fundamental. Think of in your own life, how many lessons did you learn when everything went exactly your way? You won the match, you were the star. I mean, sometimes, yeah, it's neat. And you put in the hard work and it paid off. But usually it's in failure, at least I have learned in things. And what we're seeing is the failure of the Jewish people over and over and over. And not once like, guys, we just did, anytime you're coaching a team, like, did we not just practice this like 50 times? And you did it wrong again? It's like the simplest thing possible. That's Moses and Aaron, his assistant coach. Like, come on. This is just the simple fundamental. And that's often that way. And I think part of the repetition is to show for all the readers, hey, you guys are not off the mark. This is human nature to be this way. I addressed this indirectly in my sermon today. Certain things, that's just the way it is. And to think that the world, this is the way the world ought to be, that's nice, but we got what we got. And Moses, like, I wish all my people were more generous and that we had a few more big givers and we had some people that complain less, and I wish people who are better, that they could feed the animals and make them quieter, make the kids be quiet, and just, make everything easier. Of course he wanted that. But so do the people want water on demand. They wanted what? They wanted better food. They want everything. That's just human nature. And it's, I think, through those lessons. And again, one way to look at the entire Exodus story is it takes 40 years, and Aaron has said this multiple times, Aaron Bisno, none of the people that started out got there. They had to learn the lesson so many times, literally none of them could make it. You had to get a whole new generation that learned over time, which is a very interesting idea. So are you responsible for the sins of your mothers and fathers? No, but do you carry their crazy, their issues? If you had a relative and as an alcoholic and had that behavior, and you have to deal with it generationally, that's still there. If you had a parent you had mom and dad were just the most wonderful people in the world and taught you this, that is a benefit that you carry. But we carry the good and the bad with us, and are we responsible, not directly, but we still have their genetic markers and their behavioral markers, seems to me. And I think we're getting a good dose of that over time. Is it any different, let me ask it this way, the behavior of the people in Exodus with the people in Genesis going back to Adam and Eve and then Cain and Abel? They didn't kill their brother. Not much. One of my favorite stories, and again we miss the humor in English, when Adam and Eve each eat the fruit, let's call it an apple, they eat the apple and their eyes are opened and they realize they're naked, God says, what? Where are you? We're here. We hid ourselves because we're naked. And then the greatest line in all of Scripture, who told you that you're naked? How did you get self-awareness? Which is really fantastic. And did you eat the fruit did you do the one thing I told you not to do? I mean, you could do anything else. But don't do that one thing. And you did that. Yes. And then what is Adam's excuse? Brilliant. It's her fault. Not just any woman, the woman you gave me. So basically, this is your fault, God. And it's like, it's the same. It's blaming somebody else, not taking responsibility, always looking out, and this is, again, is a theme of the sermon today, always looking for the problems out there rather than my own life. And that is writ large in this book of Exodus, as well as all of Genesis for that matter. So this is, the chapter 17, is two pieces of one story. So the first part we just did was, why don't we have water again, Moses? Geez, what's wrong? Moses wouldn't say holy Moses. I asked Aaron, I said, when I say a come to Jesus talk, what do you say? He's like, I don't know, but we need one. That's really great. Do you say a come to Moses talk? He's like, no, we don't have that. So I don't know, whatever come to Moses, it doesn't sound good, come to Adam talk, that they had to have. He's complaining to the people, and Aaron's complaining, and they're all mad at each other. And are you going to be faithful or not to Yahweh? Reminder. Because then the next scene, it feels like, oh, we've been 40 years, and then there's another, where's the water crisis? Then Amalek came and fought with Israel, meaning all the people at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, think of Joshua as like the general, choose some men for us and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. That's a weird military strategy. You want to put the archers over here and the cavalry here, no, you take the men and go out, and I'm going to go over here with the staff, the presence, symbol of Yahweh, and stand on the hill. If you've seen Lord of the Rings, what does this sound like? It sounds like Gandalf going over there to do some magic. Not magic, this is God working through Moses. By the way, the name Joshua means Yahweh is deliverance. Choose the fighting men, and then he will take the staff of Elohim, God's staff is basically what that means. It's a symbol of presence of Yahweh, and go out there. Who are the Amalekites? Guess what it means in Hebrew? Amalekite sounds malevolent, nefarious, but guess what in Hebrew that name means? Troublemakers. So, the troublemakers are out there. Well, that doesn't mean evil. It just means trouble. They're up to no good, those troublemakers. They're our rival gang. We're all going to throw confetti at each. It's like that, not real, but not mortal enemy, but these troublemakers have always been around, and they're always going to be there. That's suggested. The Amalekites were another nomadic group. Guess from whom they were descended. Who are the Israelites descended from? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Guess who the Amalekites are descended from? Esau, Jacob's brother. Jacob stole the blessing from Esau, and Esau was mad, and Esau was a hairy man, and he was the man of the tough, wild hunter-gatherer type, and he went off. They were afraid. Mom, remember, was afraid, the big tough guy is going to kill the mama's boy, Jacob, and so hid him and all this stuff. So Esau just goes off, disappears from the story, and his descendants are still mad. Those troublemakers. That's like the part of the family that goes away. You just, oh my God, thank goodness they're gone. They're the troublemakers, the dismissed type. And now they've come back into the story. Why did they come back into the story? Because they settled in the same land, and now the Israelites who've been gone for a long time in Egypt as slaves and hundreds of years, now they're coming back. And do you think the Amalekites, I've been mad at those people. I don't even know who they are, but we're supposed to be mad at them generationally. Most of us have something similar, and family, city, whatever it is, we just don't like those people. And imagine if those people that stole your heritage, been gone for hundreds of years, and then they show up. Not one or two at first, all of them. And they're coming towards you. Well, let's go kill them now before let's go make some trouble. We're getting ready to rumble here. So the story of, again, the antagonist appears. And they stole our stuff, our inheritance. We should be God's chosen people, and now they've got it. So, tomorrow, Moses says, I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God, Elohim, in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek. There's no a great battle scene here. You just kind of get the removed version. While Moses, Aaron, and Hur, a helper, went up on top of the hill. Whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed. Probably both, because if you read the story. And whenever he lowered his hand, oh my God, I'm so tired, Amalek prevailed. I got to go to the bathroom. I need some help, guys, so we're going to lose the battle. Sorry to be graphic. But Moses' hands grew weary. So they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Oh, okay, now I'm sitting down on this thing. But, you know, if you've held your hands up for long, it gets old pretty fast, and you got a big stick, and everybody's depending on you, and put it under him, and Moses sat on it. And Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side, the other on the other side, so that his hands were steady until sunset. And Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with the sword. So it's a bloody battle and all that, but there's this fascinating, could you imagine, every time his hand goes down, your side starts to lose, and the people, Israelites, are watching this? Do you not get, oh, I'm not very faithful, oh, I'm faithful, we're winning. Oh my God, I'm tired, I'm not following the commandments. Nope, back, following the commandments again. It's this very clear symbol of what we're all supposed to do. Be in the presence of God, follow the commandments. Victory happens. Put your hands down or stop following the commandments. Stop being faithful within the Jewish mindset. Bad. Did you have your hand up? It's a very transactional way of relating to God, just if that's clear. This is not Jericho. Different story. So Moses holds up his hands. I think it's weird and cool. Moses doesn't have to do it himself. Russ, Catherine, give me on either side. Just hold them up, and eventually we're going to win. And you know, how long till you get tired holding up my arm? And you got somebody else. You got all the like propped, leaning in to do this. But we see, well, the staff, that makes it harder. You could. So there's the story. Very clear symbol of faithful, not faithful. Following the commandments, not following the commandments. Is that that's a transactional way of relating to God? Yes. And you could say that throughout the Old Testament, particularly moving in as Michael's talking about with the New Testament with Paul, the relationship with God becomes less transactional and more relational. That is a fundamental shift. If you obey the commandments, honor them, God will be faithful and bless you. Or if you don't, God will punish you. That's absolutely the case. It evolves within Israelite thought, Jewish thought, over time, different books. But in the New Testament, that is a fundamental shift that occurs, both in the Gospels, the order's time's different, but in the Gospels, and what Jesus says, that changes, and then in Paul's letters, it changes in a further way. It's not just transactional, it's relational. Any questions, thoughts about that? Do you understand what I'm talking about? Big shift. Okay. Then the Lord said to Moses, oh my gosh, is it over? Did we win? Write this as a reminder in a book and recite it in the hearing of Joshua. This is more of a victory epitaph written. I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek. This is the God. Where's the love part? This is a question you should ask, Allison. Yahweh says, I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called it, the Lord is my banner. As in like a banner, we have St. Michael banner we'd hold up, which was a symbol of the presence of God. Not what's on the banner. Does it say? Is it a cool guy, soldier slaying a dragon? It's not any of that we can tell. It doesn't say what's on there, but it becomes a symbol of that holy presence. There are lots of symbols of the presence of God within Judaism, but not a direct, like a human representation. That's absolutely forbidden. The Lord is my banner. He said, a hand upon the banner of the Lord. The Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation, which is a strange way of saying we get to deal with those troublemakers and God's on our side over and over. So is that perfect, what we like it to be? I would say no. Is there still any trouble between Jews and people who live in the area today? Yes, because they have claims to the same land and so on and so forth. So this is not a new issue, but one that's going back, that's before the beginning, you could say. What thoughts, questions about all of this? Margaret? Say that the 40 years, so a couple generations, they haven't learned the lesson about being.
These people didn't necessarily know the lesson from 40 years ago, but they had to go up through it themselves. So we got another learning thing, which somebody might have known, but now we got 2 generations away. And they don't know. So we have to learn.
It's a fair point. So she's saying all the 40 years and different times going by, the generation from, our grandparents learned the lesson, but do we necessarily learn the lesson our grandparents did, or do we make the same mistakes? And so the same stories, why aren't you doing what we want you to do, God? You have to relearn it for yourself. I mean, your parents, and I'm not saying parents are perfect, but your parents can tell you something, and then you make the exact mistake they tell you not to do, and then you learn it yourself, and it's like, my mom and dad weren't so dumb after all. I mean, the older you get, the less dumb, generally speaking, they are. Yep. And you could say, so now 100 generations since, it has been thousands of years, how well have modern day people of faith, the Jews of today, learned all those lessons? It seems to be that people have to relearn them all throughout their lives. It's not just, I've got it. I don't know about you, but I'm a class 10 Christian now. I've got it all figured out. I never make mistakes. You should be like me. That's not how it works at all. Everybody, you might grow, but you go back and forth and back and forth. We talk about that as we sin and repent is a very classic way that it's not, I've got it figured out. We're still growing and becoming little Christ all the time. It's a problem of being human. Allison? Most of the time when things go right, we don't learn as much.
When things go wrong, there's a lesson somehow that comes out of that.
When things go wrong, there can be a lesson that come out of that. I believe that's largely true.
I think God does things to teach people lessons.
She's saying God does things to teach people lessons. Maybe. I would suggest that's a fine way to think about it. Another way is God doesn't cause a situation to happen, but then God provides opportunities to learn from it, to grow from it, or to go out of that. It's not like when Natalie and I met, I'm going to just push them there and make this thing happen. I still think there's free will. I can learn a lesson or not, or I could have talked to her or not. Or I can just make in 12 steps, Allison, I know you help people in recovery. Do people get it all figured out, or do they have to make the same decision every day, for example, not to drink today? I'd like to not drink forever, but I have to decide today and act this way today. It seems that our spiritual lives are very similar to that. of every day is a new day in that regard, and I could learn the lesson and to take the lesson I had before and apply it, or just because I'm a human, I seem to forget.
They say that the future is a crapshoot, but each day you could think, and you could conceive of things each day. So each step is,
Yeah.
it's easier to think of that than the whole gamut.
Yeah, I can control my actions right now and shape my future right now. Right, anything else? Thank you all. Michael.
You said earlier that Aaron could not be here today because he's now committed to teaching a Hebrew version of Sunday school. Does that mean that he is unlikely to be here next week?
No, well, it means that's where, when he's not here, he's teaching Sunday school. When he's not here, he's teaching Sunday school. That's been the case for the last year.
But that doesn't affect his likelihood of being here next week, does it?
I need to look at the schedule, but he's here roughly half the time.
About, okay.
Yeah.